Do men and women need different kinds of training? Most people are interested in the physiological differences between men and women, but I'm more interested in the way that they approach their training, the things that get in the way of them achieving their results, the mindset that differs between men and women, and the challenges that they face getting fit and taking charge of their health. As a coach, I don't spend much time digging deep into the biology of men and women. It's not to say it's not important, but I think often it comes at the cost of understanding the individual in front of you. My name is Paul. I run Hounds of Health here in Wandsworth, London, helping busy professionals take charge of their health. We offer personal training to people who want to get fit, change their life, drop their body fat, and of course, get much stronger. Now, that's a controversial point, isn't it? And it's very easy in this day and age to really separate people into different silos. Men, women, young, old, and we can end up going down a spiral of categorization. I'm interested to pose a different question. What happens if we saw people as individuals with their unique struggles, with their unique value systems, with the things that they bring to the table? And of course, I'm not going to dismiss the fact that both men and women have different perspectives on that. So rather than working out the difference of the Q angle between men and women, I'm more interested in saying what are the things that they're trying to juggle, they're trying to balance, that makes training a man different to training a woman. And I'll be honest, there's more similarities often than differences, but those differences can make a big difference in the kind of results they get. Now, whenever someone applies for one of our programs, a name comes in and I phone them. And I go through exactly the same process, whether they're male or female. I firstly have to just get to know them. One of the first questions I ask is, what are the challenges and frustrations that you face? And what is it that's stopping you getting the results? Now, obviously, I pose that question in different ways. And I'll be honest, right from the start, women answer it very differently than men. Women will tell you exactly what they're struggling with. And often the kind of questions I have to ask are pretty limited. I'll often just be quiet and they will tell me exactly what they're struggling with, exactly why it's important, exactly where they are emotionally, exactly where they think they need help. They'll be pretty explicit about everything. And often I'm just guiding them with a couple of key questions that just dig deep into the motivation that they have. And one of the big things for everyone is for me to find out actually what's going to drive them. Firstly, we start with the problem, and then we work out why that problem is important and why they want to solve it. For men, well, I have to dig a little bit harder. Often they just want to get fit. I want to get stronger. And it takes a few more questions before I actually start to uncover what they're struggling with. And for many times, in a way, the guy just wants a solution, wants to know the price, wants to know when he can start, how many sessions, what we're going to be doing. And it's very procedural. And that could be really useful because then he's going to weigh it up and work out whether he's going to do it on his own or if he actually needs help. But I have to follow a structure when I'm talking to people because I actually want to get the same amount of information out of both a woman and a man so that I can actually guide them. And it's really important that I do that because if they walk into this gym and we don't know who they are, they might as well be anywhere. They might as well be at the Globo gym down the road. There's 15 quid, doesn't know who they are, doesn't care what their goals are, doesn't know what they're struggling with. What I typically hear for women is that they're trying to fight battles on many fronts. They often have responsibilities outside themselves, and they're trying to hold not only their health in check, but they've got the kids, they've got social lives, they've got expectations at work, they've got so many different moving parts, and they're all trying to deal with them concurrently. And what happens is that health is the thing that they are willing to, well, I say willing, that ends up being the thing that pays the price. And they hope that they'll be able to deal with it at a later time. Often we get to a point in our lives where we put others in front of ourselves, and that's very noble, but it often happens at the cost of our own happiness, and long term leaves us impoverished. And I think a lot of women, particularly as they come into their 40s and 50s, realize that now's the time they have to put boundaries around their health. And also they're dealing with careers which are challenging. And like any parent, for example, if they're a parent, they're trying to balance the needs of their kids, their partner, and their career at the same time. And they're trying to multitask on those things. For a guy, often there's a past where they have been fit, and they're trying to look at how they can be capable. There's a sense that they're missing some capability, and it goes to the root of their effectiveness. And they want a solution. They just want to get it solved. There's often a little bit of an impatience. There's often a bit of regret around where they were in the past. There's often a kind of jovial jokingness about it, where they think they make light of it. They make light of their lack of fitness. They make light of the situation they're in. I find it much more difficult to get to the pain. And the pain is important. It's not because I enjoy hearing about people's difficulties, but it's about understanding what's going to make someone do the difficult work. That's going to focus them when it's cold and wet, when they don't want to train. What is the reason they're doing this? And guys are less likely to give it up. So if I say, tell me how you feel, many times men won't tell me. How does that make you feel is a question that rarely gets the answer I want. Whereas with a woman, I'll typically say, when that happened, how did it make you feel? And I will get an honest response, and then it allows me to start guiding them into how we could potentially help them. For guys, it's often, what are the consequences of feeling like this? How has that had an effect on your productivity? How has that had an effect on your effectiveness as a father? How has that had an effect on your effectiveness as a partner? What is the consequences of your energy levels at work, and how's that affecting your job? And often they will then dig deep and tell them how they feel. Like they will tell me about their feelings as a consequence of that. So you get the same answer from both, but do different kind of questioning. Now, when it comes into the gym, when it comes to training people, they all kind of need the same thing. I treat people as humans, and humans need to get stronger. They need to get leaner. They need to improve their cardiovascular fitness, their metabolic health, their bone density and mobility, their flexibility, their habits and behaviors, their skills under stress. These are the same for men and women. How they choose to employ them, when they employ them, in which scenarios is unique. Now, men don't have the same hormonal monthly fluctuations, so we do add in that element. That goes into the skill bracket of food preparation, recovery, knowing how to manage your energy levels during that time of the month is something we wouldn't deal with a man. So there's a different conversation there. With a guy, it's often about getting them to start where they're at, which isn't where they were when they were 20, it's where they are now. We often get them, we're often holding guys back a little bit in terms of, if I'm going to see a difference in the way men and women approach things, men will often overestimate their ability and women will often underestimate their ability. However, if you've been in our gym for a while, and particularly if you're a guy who joins us, you'll realize that your overestimation is now nowhere near some of the ladies who are so strong. What we do see, particularly with a lot of the women we coach, at first they lack confidence in their ability to do strength training, but eventually, as that switch flips, they're the ones saying, I want to have a go on that heavy weight. I'm going to challenge myself. And they're super competitive. They will push. I love the energy of a mixed group. We have a slightly more women than men, and I think that's because women tend to realize that they need some help and they're more likely to reach out for that at the beginning. For guys, they do feel like they can do it themselves. And I've done a podcast on the lone wolf syndrome, and that tends to affect men more than women. But I think both are receptive to coaching. I think when you get a good woman and a good guy, they're both easy to coach. Typically, men need to focus a little bit more on their mobility and their flexibility. Typically, women need to work on this ability to generate tension. These are two areas that both men and women historically haven't spent as much time doing. Let's be honest, yoga is more popular with women than it is with men. It's not to say there aren't amazing male yogis, but I don't tend to hear men saying, I've been doing yoga, Pilates, stuff, spinning. They're typically going down the gym on their own workout plan. Whereas women are coming more from those group classes where they play to their strengths, essentially. Both men and women play to their strengths. Men might have done more contact sports at school, so they're used to the rough and tumble and the physicality and the exertion and the tension and the straining of that. And strength training has an element of that. Whereas women tend to have come from slightly softer disciplines initially. It's not to say they haven't been competitive, because we have people who row, we have people who've done martial arts and things like that. But a lot of the demographic we work with, they're not coming from that background. However, we're hearing more and more and more, particularly from women, that they want to get stronger. We don't hear quite as much the concern about getting muscular, but it is still something that people struggle to get around, the fear of being bulky. And it's easy to dismiss it. We're not If I start cooking, I'm not going to become a Michelin-star chef. If I start running, I'm not going to be Kipchoge. These things are very hard to attain. Muscle mass for a woman is incredibly tough to build. You know, even with a concerted effort over a number of months, women are lucky if they put on a couple of kilos. But it's not, once I think the process starts, they realize that that's not going to happen that easily. For guys, they often overestimate how much muscle they're going to put on. The guys do say, I do want to be bulky. I think both demographics lack a context to understand actually how much work it is to change your body. Because in society, you see the before and after pictures, so you think, oh, it just happens when I start training. Having never attained it yourself, you don't actually know how hard it is. I think timelines are an issue for both. I think women tend to have a little bit more patience, but also at the same time, women get distracted in different ways. But women need strength training, particularly as they go into menopause. Highly important to maintain that bone density, to build that stability in the joints, to build the muscle mass, to maintain your metabolism as your estrogen levels change. And there is a marked drop off as women enter menopause or perimenopause and postmenopause. And there's a lot of complexity when people start HRT, and particularly in the gray zone when they're not quite started, but they think something's happening. We work with a lot of women post-baby, and therefore we've got to be aware of C-sections, energy levels, confidence, stuff like that. There is a difference between men and women in the progression that you'll see in the upper body movements. Men will make vastly superior gains in upper body strength. You do bench press, you'll take a mat. We've had men who struggle to do 20 kilo empty bar when they start, and they're up to 60 kilos pretty quickly once they get going. And it's rare to see a woman get beyond 45 kilos. I'll say it's not possible, and there's plenty of women who can do that, but it's less likely. Men make vastly faster strength gains on the upper body. But both men and women make gains. Both men and women put on muscle. Both men and women get stronger. Both men and women push beyond their limits. Both men and women work collaboratively. So all of those things work. There's not many egos in our gym because most of the people who join us, they're not gym people. They're busy professional people. And it just happens they want to get fit, and they just need a community and an environment in which to do that. In terms of the lower body, we're still working on squats. We're not working on women's exercises. I don't know what a woman's exercise would be. I think that there are progressions in terms of the programming that favor men versus women. And I think a lot of the studies from universities and things like that tend to be 18-year-old men that they've got because they all want the money. And they're a cheap and easy resource for university postgrads to do their work on. Lower body, we see similar progressions in terms of progress, both men and women on deadlifts and squats. Just men are working with heavier weights. Men's 1 rep max tends to be much higher, or their ability to get closer to their 1 rep, their calculated 1 rep max is more likely. So if we calculate that someone's 1 rep max is 150 kilos, the chances of a man hitting that on a good day is much higher than what we see for women. So being able to generate that maximal tension, if they're easily doing a set of 5 with a particular weight, and they're doing that easily, and then you put the weight up by 5 kilos only, a woman may suddenly struggle to do 1 rep when they've done 5 with just a couple of kilos lighter. Whereas with a man, we find that it's a little bit more steady. They can keep making progress closer and closer to that 1 rep max. And I think that's just the predominance of the angles of the joints, the predominance of fast twitch fibers, the neural efficiency, things like that. But women have equal amount of endurance. We've got women who just go, so that mental fortitude is there. There's no differences there. Do women want big upper bodies? Probably not. Do they want to look toned and athletic in their upper body? Yes. Is the bench press a good way of doing that? Yes. Do women want to see a full body result in a photograph? Weights coming off their hips and their legs and their thighs? Of course they do. Men more interested in the abs and the upper body. So there's preferences there. But a bench press and a row is going to be equally as effective for both men and women. Bicep curls, triceps, we all have the same muscles. They develop muscle mass differently. Speed of progression in the upper body, as I said, is different. The ability to pack on muscle is different because there's testosterone. So those are the differences. But ultimately, we're working with clients 2 to 3 times a week. And really, we're just working on fundamentals. Most people just need to get the fundamentals before they start working on specific hamstring exercises or specific glute medial exercises. They just need to do the squat. They just need to deadlift. They just need to lift a heavy weight or push it away from them and pull it towards them. And I think women particularly are undersold the value of high intense not high intensity training, but high stimulus training, where you're lifting a heavy weight, where you're trying to stimulate muscle growth, where you're putting force on your bones, rather than just the kind of endless cardio or the light weight, kind of light dumbbells, sweaty stuff. Get in there, picking a heavy weight up off the floor. Generally, all their dreams will come true. They will get lean, they will look great. I've got a lady at the moment, just got off the phone. She's been on our 12-week program, just lost 4 kilos over the last week, 3 weeks. She's deadlifting, she's back squatting, she's swinging a kettlebell, she's doing press-ups, she's doing sit-ups, she's doing rows, all the stuff that the guys are doing, and she's getting smaller waist. She's starting to see changes on her body across the board. She's doing exactly what a guy would do. Now, if a guy comes to me and wants to be a competitor on stage, then there'll be a different program, because you have different kind of muscle groups you want to show off. And I've come across a lot of women who train purely for those booty gains or the aesthetics of that, and they tend to be deconditioned. They don't tend to be that strong in the upper body. They don't tend to have much cardio, but they've worked on having great thighs, great hamstrings, great glutes, small waist. You train for what you get, like any discipline. And typically I believe that strength training will accentuate your natural assets. As a man, you'll get a bigger chest, you'll get bigger biceps, you'll get bigger shoulders, bigger back, more muscular, narrow waist, narrow hips, all the things you want as a guy. As a woman, because you've got estrogen, you're going to see a small waist, you're going to accentuate your curves, you're going to feel more feminine through strength training. And that's why it is completely gender neutral. Everyone has muscles and everyone should generate tension. So that's how we approach the differences between men and women when we're coaching. And if you want to dig into the biology, of course, when you're trying to get those marginal gains, the biology can be really important. One of our coaches, Ilya, has released a book where there's a difference between both men and women. I'll post the link to that book underneath in the description to this YouTube channel. And we do find that sometimes women respond to different patterns of eating and do very well having 0 carbs in the beginning of the day and do very well fasting. Women, it can be hit and miss. So there are changes there, and there can be biological, hormonal reasons for that. But really, we just got to cover the basics. Once we've got the basics, when we can start thinking about those things. But there's no point going straight to the periphery and missing out a big win. It's a bit, you say, let's get the perfect supplement stack. We've got the perfect supplement stack, and you realize that person's not even doing any strength training. Let's just get the strength training, get the basics underway, get the movement there, get the calorie deficit, hit the protein targets, drink enough water, get enough sleep. Is that working? Yeah, well, maybe you don't need to do any more. But if it's working and you're like next level, great, let's optimize. And if any of your gender-based or sex-based issues are getting in the way, something like menopause that's making a calorie deficit more complex, then yes, of course, you can start adjusting. Really, it comes down to the same process. Am I building a relationship and understanding the client in front of me? And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. So if you're interested in getting fit and healthy, you do live in Wandsworth, then why don't you give us a DM? You can do that via the YouTube channel or go to Instagram or website, houndsofhealth.co.uk. My name's Paul. Till next week, please do subscribe and send this to anyone who you think might benefit from it.